Okay, welcome to Mal's Kitchen. We're going to make today some really nice potato and rosemary bread. To make this rise, I'm going to be using a sourdough culture, which I have in the fridge. So I started this off with some flour. There's 200 grams of sourdough culture there ready to go. This means I don't need to use yeast in my recipe. If you wanted to change this recipe to use yeast, you would use 6 grams of instant yeast, 100 grams extra of flour and 100 grams extra of mashed potato. But as I'm using a sourdough culture, I don't need to add the extra. So here I've got 2 teaspoons of chopped rosemary and 2 teaspoons of salt. I've got 20 grams of honey, 150 milliliters of water and 400 grams of strong white flour. Now the reason this bread is so nice is because the potato adds a totally different texture to what you get in normal breads. It is slightly heavier than a normal bread, but it's so much moister. The potato adds richness. This is scooped out jacket potatoes and a little bit of mashed potato as well. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to put the starter, the water, the rosemary, the honey and the potatoes all into my mixing machine. Okay, so I've got my ingredients in there: the flour, the sourdough starter, the mashed potato, rosemary, salt, and I'm going to add my water to this mixture, 150 ml, and it's going to be quite a liquidy mix here. And the only thing that I've got to add is my flour, which I would do gradually. Now you may need a little bit more flour depending on the water content of the potatoes, which is quite difficult to calculate. Push that down. Now in terms of proving, because I'm using a sourdough culture, it probably will take about 4 hours to double in size. If you were using yeast, it would probably do it a bit quicker, maybe 1.5 to 2 hours. So it is quicker using yeast, but you will not get the same flavour, complexity of flavour as you will do using a sourdough mix. So that's now coming together. I'm going to start adding the flour now gradually. I mean, this bread is actually really nice for breakfast with poached eggs. It goes nicely as toast, fantastic just toasted, with some butter and some jam or some Marmite, whatever you like. I'll just turn that speed down a tiny bit. Now if it doesn't take all your flour mixture at the beginning, don't worry about it, because it all depends on the potato water content, and it does tend to be quite a wet dough. Even when it comes together now, you come back to it in 20 minutes and have a look at it, and there's moisture will come out of it. So we will utilise most of this flour when I roll it out, when I stretch it. And I suppose one of the hard things about this bread is because it's sort of 35–40% potato, is stretching the gluten in the flour to allow the CO2 to be trapped within that and rise the bread is the tough part. And so we need to stretch this dough out quite often to develop the gluten. I'm just going to have a little feel. See, that is very wet, still very wet. Okay, so I think that's going to be okay now, and then I will turn it out onto the surface and show you how to stretch out the dough and start to get it ready for proving. Okay, it's really starting to come together now and look like a proper dough. Out of the machine now, and I'm just going to flatten it down and fold it over and do the same again. Stretch it, flatten it down, fold it over, flatten it down, fold it over, and this develops the gluten in the flour content. So again, stretch it, fold it over, make sure you use all your ingredients, and I'm going to do it again, stretch it out. And you can see it's starting to smooth up a little bit now. So I'm just going to put a tiny bit of this leftover flour in the bottom of my mixing bowl, lift this up. As you can see, I'm going to leave this to prove now, probably 2 to 4 hours. We'll see how it is. It's quite warm today, so it might do a bit faster. Okay, it's been an hour and a half for this rosemary potato bread, so I'm just going to stretch it out again just to get a bit more structure. So again, stretch, fold over, a little bit of flour, stretch, fold over, stretch, and then just fold it over again. And this is just creating a bit of structure so that the loaf holds its shape when you go to bake it. Otherwise it has a tendency to really flatten, and that's not a bad thing, but it just looks more attractive when it holds its shape. So that's it for another. You can see the bubbles starting to form on top now, so it is proving nicely. So in another hour, hour and a half, that's going to be ready for baking. So the dough has now doubled in volume. So what I'm going to do now is take medium-sized bowl, line it with a clean tea towel, and then get the leftover flour and put plenty of flour in there, because this is going to shape my bread. Okay, and this is the best way for a sourdough loaf anyway, to keep its shape when it's proving. So plenty of flour in there. Just move that over. dough, which has really increased a lot in volume now. So I don't want to knock all the air out of it. I'm just going to fold it over very gently. You can see all these air bubbles coming out of it all over the place. It's really very active now. So turn that upside down, pop that in there now nicely, and then I'm going to cover this and prove this for 1 hour till it's risen to about there. Then we're going to turn it out and bake it. I'll show you how to do that. Okay, here we go. I'm turning the bread out now onto the stone. This is a baking stone, which I have. And I'm just going to bake this. And I'll take it out when it's cooked. So there you go, that's 20 minutes. That's had 20 minutes. I'm going to set the timer now for another 15 minutes, and I'm going to turn the temperature down as well to 190, and I'll show you when it comes out the oven. Okay, so I'm just lifting the bread out now. And it's cooked. Okay, so there we have potato and rosemary bread with a sourdough culture. Okay, give the recipe a try.